in chess, we know that opening is very important to study modern theory, very important to know the end games, and you must know the strategy of the game. But I think the most important in chess is to know tactics, tactical shots, preparations for combinations, sacrifices, because without them there is no game of chess. Every game you can see played on a decent, reasonable level has tactics. There is no game that has been played yet on reasonably high level that went without tactics. That's not necessarily the tactics that you see being played on the board, but it's a possibility of the tactics and avoiding them. You may not see combinations played on the board, but you may see one side or another played some move to avoid certain combinations, or played some move to set up a certain trap of the tactics or combinations, and the other side is avoiding them. So this is very, very important. And very frequently I was asked question, how do you learn tactics? There is no book that tells you that's the way you learn tactics. There is a book that says how to learn openings. There is a book to say how do you learn end games. But about the tactics, you should learn themes, motifs for the combinations, how to avoid them, how to set them up. And every combination, most of the combinations, I shouldn't say every combination, has themes for it, has reason why this combination or another work. Now, let's divide combinations on several different themes. And if you get a book on the combination, you see the combination on a pin, on a weak 7th horizontal, back rank mate, or double attack or deflection. There are lots of them. You have to learn them all, and most of the combinations have those themes. Now, if once you learn them all, intuition will tell you how to detect those combinations. What I mean by that is this. Here is one example we have on a board. You see that black's king has no move. So the white can by force checkmate black in 3 moves. You see, if white plays queen takes g7 and black plays rook takes g7, now I want you to see rook takes g7 would have been a mate if not the queen on b7, which can capture white rook. So the reason why this combination doesn't work is because the queen on b7 protects the g7, queen on b7 protects the g7 square. So what we have to do, we have to coordinate our efforts. So mate on g7, g7 is a 1 key square, and the other rook c8, that would have been a checkmate if not black's queen. So we notice that black's queen is overloaded. Now, this you have to have, once you see a lot of those combinations, you will be developing intuition. And intuition tells you right away, your eye immediately catches the g7 and c8 square. You play rook c8 check, do deflect black's queen from g7, from protecting g7 square. And now after playing queen takes g7, rook takes g7, rook takes g7, checkmate. Now this combination definitely has a logical solution. A logical solution is the rook c8 check. Now this is very logical. There are many, many different types of themes and motifs. White has certain theme here, an h7 pawn. Now, can white play rook c6? And now white, what they do is attacking their queen and attacking the checkmating square. That will be okay, that probably wins. And if black plays g6, maybe simply bishop takes g6. That wins. But there is a better solution for white. White can by force checkmate black in a few moves. Now, what difference does it make if we play rook c6 or queen takes h7? Rook c6 seems like wins on this pad, because after g6, bishop takes g6. And it does win. But let's say for a second that black's queen was somewhere in this position. And if we go rook b6 or something, then black gives check, and maybe black can protect. Best way for a combination when you make moves and every move, yours and your opponent's, is absolutely forced. The reason why it's important, because then you have no sub-variations. You have to calculate a lot more, and you know the more you have to calculate, the higher the chance of you making mistake, because you are a human and calculations can cause human mistakes. There is a force made by playing queen takes h7. Now, before we get to it, now here is the theme of the combination. We see the target. The target can be exploited several different ways. You have to find most efficient way. The most efficient way here is queen takes h7, because it's a more forceful, and never from here to the checkmating position, black never has an option. King takes h7, rook h6 double check. It's a simple calculation. King g8, no choice because it's double check with a rook and a bishop. And now bishop e6 check, and after king f8, rook h8 checkmate. This is the most efficient way. But of course, you cannot randomly find this combination. You have to see the X-ray attack of the bishop on f5 to h7 square. So queen takes h7 is the most efficient way to do it. So now this is also theme. This is a theme with variety of ways to play, plus little calculation. Now let me give you more complicated way. Now here comes mating net. You construct mating net. Well, first we want to stop king from running away. For instance, if we go knight d4 check, king is going to run away. White still is going to have very good position, but it's nowhere near as good as checkmating if we have this possibility. And rook takes d6 forces mate. Now, the theme, what is the theme? Why rook takes d6 is thematic move? After rook takes d6, bishop takes d6 is forced, and you see that white's queen controls 7th horizontal. Now black's king has no move. For instance, if we can make illegal move, if we could take knight from f5 and put it to g5, that would have been a checkmate, but knight doesn't go like this. Well, now we notice that black's king cannot make any moves. Now we play knight d4 check. Why is this check so important? For two different reasons. After queen takes d4, now we can push f5 pawn. Remember, knight was on f5, so we couldn't go f5. Knight d4, queen takes d4, f5 check. And after king e5, the only move, queen g3, is the checkmate. You see, black's king is smothered with its own pieces, with knight, queen, bishop. The theme of this combination, you have to notice that king is smothered. King, you should cut off the escape squares. That's the direction your brain has to work. Direction of cutting off escape squares and bring king forward or checkmate him right where it is. Rook takes d6 is a good way to start it, and this is a winning move by force. Now white is a piece down, but white can by force checkmate black's king. Now let's look at the possibilities. We see that black's king has no moves at all. Now all we have to do, we have to get to that king, check him the way that he cannot capture our piece. Notice now, very interesting detail here. Suppose black did not have the g7 pawn. All I have to do is I have to get to black's king. This g7 pawn is critical. If black didn't have the g7 pawn, then white can play queen takes e6, pawn takes e6, and bishop h5 is a checkmate. Well, but we cannot take this pawn away. Pawn is there. Queen takes e6 is not going to work now because on bishop h5 is g6. So we have to find another way to get to black's king. And that's where we start search for a theme. We start search for what are the critical squares we can get into. They are all protected. Knight c7 would have been checkmate if not the rook on c8. Queen takes c6 would have been a checkmate if not bishop on b7 and rook on c8. Well, and you see rook d8 would have been a checkmate if not knight on c6 and rook on c8. In every case, black has some defense. They can capture our piece. What we have to do, we have to integrate those threats and find actual solution in getting to what we want. One piece that is on our way is the knight on c6. Notice that rook on c8 is overloaded. Rook on c8 protects black from knight c7 checkmate and rook d8 checkmate. But rook d8 checkmate he can capture with the rook or he can capture with the knight. And here comes solution. We first eliminate piece that is very important in defending the d8 square. Obviously, black cannot capture the queen with the rook because rook d8 will be checkmate. Okay, bishop has to take. Now you see that if black's rook stood somewhere on b file, knight c7 will be checkmate. If black's rook would have been on a8, same knight c7 is a checkmate. So rook has to stand on c8. So what is this rook protecting? This rook is protecting black from knight c7 checkmate, and also, if rook wasn't there, there would have been another checkmate, rook d8. And here comes the logical, this is strictly logic and a little bit of experience. We do knight c7 check first. We're forcing rook to move away from the 8th rank. Rook takes c7, and now rook d8 is a checkmate. Rook left the back rank. Well, you may say, why can't we do it the other way? That's where comes the simple calculation. If you do rook d8 check first, it's not going to do it because rook going to take on d8, and after knight c7 check, king d7, black can escape. So you used strict logic and little double checking. Then you see, out of two moves, which one will get you where you want to get. And that's obviously knight c7 check, rook takes c7, and rook to d8 checkmate. That's not difficult at all. This is not difficult. And actually, all the play before that was, that white conducted, was aimed on this smothered and bad king's position, where all white's pieces jump on a black's position and they assault black's king and they checkmate black. So those are this is well prepared attack, logically concluded with a checkmate, cute but a relatively simple combination. It's a simple combination, and it's like it should be very easy for you once you are comfortable with these thematic exercises. Then you're going to get it in the game, and you're going to see it in 1-minute games maybe. That's how quick it will go. You're definitely going to see them in the tournament games.